Listen, I see on Twitter and people going, since Harvey Weinstein left, look what actresses look like now. And it's, I crack up. It's funny, because the internet's funny. It's a funny place. But Chris and I are not here to sweep for Harvey. Like, I have no dog in this fight whatsoever. I am just an observer of this. And hey, everybody's innocent until proven guilty. And I do believe he has a retrial in one city, but not in another, right? Because he was convicted in both Los Angeles and in New York. If some people go, well, there's been a lot of show trials lately. Yes, there have. And show trials exist. DAs have fucking egos, and DAs have agendas. They like to pile up convictions, and whether those people are guilty or not doesn't really fucking matter to them in a lot of cases. So just having been through the system myself. But let's hear a little bit of what I guess Harvey has to say.
I just wanted to say that I'm not angry at the system. My situation was transactional, looking back at it. And I want to thank you, Candace, for giving me the opportunity to speak. I just want to say something very clearly. I believe women should be heard, but I'm wrongfully convicted. You know what I mean? And right now, I'm not convicted. I'm on a retrial. My appeal overturned my conviction.
So pause. He's on a retrial in one city, correct?
It also seems like he's reading something right there.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say this. I think he's a scumbag. I think he was horrible to women. I don't know if there was actual grape involved. He says transactional. I want to know how many actresses in Hollywood currently holding Oscars made a deal with Harvey that I will do a favor for you if you push my career. He had the magic touch when it came to Oscars.
He had the magic touch. He also was, using his power to manipulate the Oscars.
Well,
let's be real. Like, some of those movies that won were not the best picture of the year. They were fucking shit. Shakespeare in Love is one I bring up all the time. That's a fucking bad movie, dude.
Yeah, I agree. I'll just say, did he do things that were illegal?
Yeah, I guess that's the question.
Immoral. Certainly immoral. I think even he would agree.
Yeah, I guess it's the same when it comes to differing degrees with Neil Gaiman and Joss Whedon, right? So much different at the opposite ends of the spectrum, because one was just being an asshole. And it's not illegal to be an asshole in Hollywood. Hollywood's filled with assholes. Chris knows.
Yes.
It is filled with assholes and dicks
right.
and pussies.
Yeah.
And sometimes dicks fuck assholes. And sometimes dicks fuck pussies.
Great Team America speech.
Oh my God.
So good.
Okay, let's go.
Now, I'm not.
And everybody ends up covered in shit.
Oh my God.
Team America. They won't make one like that ever again. One of the greatest movies ever made.
Oh, so good.
Heard, but I'm wrongfully convicted. You know what I mean? And right now, I'm not convicted. I'm on a retrial. An appeal overturned my conviction. But justice demands a clear, honest look at each case. And I am here for fairness and the truth.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I made mistakes. There's no question about it. I hurt my family. I hurt my friends. I cheated on my wife, and that was a mistake, a terrible mistake. And I apologize to friends, family, and all the innocent people who inadvertently I hurt, and especially to the Messick family, Jill Messick and her family. But I did not commit these crimes. I swear that before God and the people watching now, and on my family. I'm wrongfully accused. But justice has to know the difference between what is immoral and what is legal.
Pause.
There you go.
No atheists in a foxhole. No atheists in prison. Just want to point that out in front of God and everybody. It was a mistake that I was walking down the street one day and I tripped and I cheated on my wife. I fell into another woman.
Mistake tells me he's not being accountable. When you use the word mistake for a thing you did on purpose.
You cheated on your wife. It's Hollywood. Nobody on earth is going to a Hollywood producer cheated on his wife. That's a day in a week. Nobody cares about that. You almost have to count Hollywood marriages in dog years. But it's the grape that's in question here, and how transactional was things. And when this was going down, especially during the Me Too stuff, we were talking about this a lot. Listen, come on. And then some of the people who came out, is it Asia Argento? Is that the
Yes.
one who was
Yes, correct.
all Me Too until she got
And
busted
then
having
with a younger man,
with a kid, a teenager. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So a bunch of hypocrisy. It was just used as a power move, largely by Jar Jar Abrams' wife, by the way, who was part of the Me Too committee. And it was about putting more women in power. It coincidentally came right around the big DEI push. It was such a coincidence, Chris. Emmanuel is the man who said, never let a disaster go to waste. I'm paraphrasing. That's not the exact, but never let an opportunity like that, never let a crisis go to waste. That happened. That's why the Me Too movement fell apart, because it was being used to cancel people who made jokes. Roy Price, the guy who helped start Amazon Prime Video, fired for making a joke at a party, a dick joke.
And then, people like Aziz Ansari, who had a bad date, a date gone wrong.
Yeah.
That was fine. They were intimate. It seemed all consensual. And then the woman wrote about it. And that's when guys are like, whoa, what's going on?
People would say my complaint is, I'm getting emotional. Everyone deserves a fair
he lost
trial.
his place. Pause. He's not getting emotional. He lost his place. Come on, Harvey. Come on.
People would say my complaint is, I'm getting emotional. Everyone deserves a fair trial. Media doesn't favor me, but thanks to you, Candace, there's a voice out there, and Joe Rogan, and uses every opportunity, the mainstream media, to discredit me. But I speak for innocent people. Justice has to matter. Evidence has to matter.
Pause for a second. Why did he drop Joe Rogan's name? Maybe he's just broadly talking about Joe Rogan openly questioning the narrative, the official version of events that we get every day. That's the only reason I can think of, unless the chat knows something I don't, which they always do.
I've lost everything. I've lost everything a man can lose, but still the truth matters. I've been condemned of crimes I did not commit. I understand why people want someone to blame, but I am telling the truth. End of statement. End of glasses. And they allowed me to wear a suit today, as opposed to the last time I was in my T-shirt and pajamas. So they wanted me to wear a suit, so here it is.
Well, you look like you're hanging in there. And I got to tell you, since you've been in there, the media world has changed. I think a world that you had a lot of power in. You can see the landscape has changed. And it's a good thing, because podcasters like me can have a platform to take a look at situations like yours. And, my audience is very aware of my opinion on this case. I've been very clear about that. I don't find a reason to lie. I said you were wrongfully convicted before it got overturned. And I believe you are wrongfully accused, not just in the New York case, but also in the LA case, which my audience is now up to date on. Harvey, I obviously, because I very much agree with you, I think you are immoral and what you did was wrong, but you did not do anything that came close to what you were accused of under the law. I just want to ask you, what is it like to go from someone who commanded so much power amongst politicians and amongst celebrities and athletes?
Thoughts, Chris?
I really wish someone else was doing this interview, because Candace is, some of her takes have not been the best. So I wish it were someone like a Megyn Kelly, who I think can be balanced, but she seeks truth. So,
I'm surprised Piers. This is like right up Piers Morgan.
Yeah, Piers Morgan should get him on. Now
he's gonna get him on, I promise.
What does Harvey have to lose? Number one. Number two, the theme of this: immoral, not illegal, and he will hammer that. And he has to start naming names. He talks about, we'll hear it later, a story about Gwyneth Paltrow, but I didn't realize he worked with her so many times. I'm not trying to defend Harvey Weinstein, but actresses can be emotional, a little crazy. I talked about, there's a Substack out, there's 1,000 of them, so good, we found it, but it was just somebody who was in Neil Gaiman's orbit forever, and the thesis of the Substack was, I totally knew all this was going on. I didn't say anything because I needed to maintain my access to Neil Gaiman. So this is breaking news to absolutely no one. And that is probably the truth 99% of the time. Now, what did they know was going on? Did they know transactional relationships were going on? Or just fucking, I call them relationships, business deals were going on? And that, I guess that's the question. I think you're naive if you think that things in Hollywood are not transactional.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's you owe someone a favor. This is why you get casting that's so bad. We'll get to that.
Ezra Miller,
like people get cast because they have the right connections. People who may have done things to get in those positions or are willing to do things. That's business as usual in Hollywood. So it's really like, I just wonder, when is Harvey gonna, like, because he doesn't do it in this interview, but this is part one. Does he name names? Does he say, hey, I was intimate with the specific actress and the implication was I would push her Oscar campaign for her movie. She won an Oscar, and for me doing that, she did this for me. That happens. Don't be naive or stupid. That happens until he's willing to call it out. When you see the montage, everyone from Meryl Streep on down to Oprah praise him all over. Why? He needs to talk about that. I don't know if Candace is the right person to do that. Maybe Rogan will. He always does in person. Will Rogan do an over the stream interview with Harvey? He could. Maybe it opens himself up to, like, I'm going to go on the circuit now. Candace is, step one.
I would much rather Rogan. Oh, sorry to interrupt. But like Rogan interviewing Harvey Weinstein. Yes.
But name names. Talk about how Hollywood works. Look, that is real. That's real. You do this for me, I do this for you. This is how movies get packaged. They call it packaging. It's bullshit. It's one studio saying you have to use all of our actors. We'll give you a deal. There's favors all around. Hollywood is built on relationships and favors. And they took Harvey down and then fill that power vacuum with themselves. But he needs to get specific about how Hollywood works and discuss, like, you do for me, I do for you, and, like, give examples and call other people out.
They removed him because his power was slipping a little bit, and they smelled a little blood in the water, and they just wiped it out. And I know there's some documentaries, but they really don't hit on the power vacuum aspect of it at all. Like, and how that was filled by people associated with Spielberg, people associated with Jar Jar Abrams. Let's not forget that the Democratic Party was heavily involved with the unions, with Hollywood. They're both heavily involved with the unions and the corporations. Let's not forget the Twitter files. Let's not forget how many government assets work in each one of these studios, because they fucking do. We know so much more information now. And it made it a lot easier for them to do this stuff. And Harvey was just seen as a liability, and he probably was, because he was a fucking freak. And, like, I still believe the guy had people off. That's just my speculation. I think he had that much that kind of power. I think he ran it like a gangster. Yeah. Did he do what he did? Can they prove it beyond the shadow of a doubt? Well, they did. And again, we have to say, like, he's got 2 convictions, so only one is being readdressed right now. And maybe it's like, I don't fucking know. I have no idea. I find it very hard to trust Harvey Weinstein and the court system in New York. Right. I'm a little conflicted. I don't trust either of them. So that's where I'm at. Just here to see what happens. Do we think we're going to get truth or justice? I doubt it. Highly doubt it.
Yeah, I agree.
What is it like to go from someone who commanded so much power amongst politicians and amongst celebrities and athletes, and overnight, virtually none of those people stood up for you or said, hey,
that's Hollywood, baby.
It's shocking. The friends that stayed with me were my friends that I grew up with, the people that I knew before I was famous, before I had power. The people in my life who were steadfast all through my life were the ones who remained loyal. Everybody was scared. This looked like, a witch hunt. Everybody was scared for themselves. Everybody was scared to be canceled. Somehow, I wish this would have happened to somebody else, because I had the courage to have fought on somebody else's behalf, but nobody fought on mine.
Harvey, I have a long list of people who came out against you, but a very short list of who actually spoke out for you. One person in particular, which is quite stunning, a guy by the name of Luciano Garignani, an Italian director. He wore a homemade T-shirt in support of you in 2018 that said that you were not guilty. That was the only person that I could find
move,
that vocally supported you when all of the heat was coming down on you in 2018.
He's a terrific director, and that's, I'm very much appreciate it. But the people who support me are scared to talk. They are frightened to death. They are frightened that they're going to be canceled, that they're not going to be able to work. I try to get, my, people to stand up and even testify in the trial. And nothing, nothing.
And jumping into that, by the way, some of the names, there were people who I think remained silent for that reason that you're saying, is they were fearful of being canceled. But some people took it upon themselves to come out and actually condemn you and to say awful things about you. And the media was obsessed with speaking about Gwyneth Paltrow. I don't know if you know this. She went on Howard Stern and basically made a very strong statement against you and said that Brad Pitt had to effectively rescue her from you and stand up to you because you made her feel so uncomfortable.
We had one instance in a hotel room where he made a pass at me. And then I really kind of stood up to him. I told my boyfriend at the time, Brad Pitt. We were at the opening of Hamlet on Broadway that Ray Fiennes was in Hamlet, and Harvey was there, and Brad Pitt. It was like the equivalent of throwing him against the wall, energetically. What he did was he leveraged his fame and power to protect me at a time when I didn't have fame or power yet.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
It moved you.
Yeah. It was fantastic.
How'd you get that fame and power?
Make her feel uncomfortable again, I'll kill you, or something like that.
It's a complete fabrication, about my relationship with Gwyneth. I'm going to talk about it and just say that I had a meeting with her. She originally was scheduled to do Woody Allen's Everyone Says I Love You. Thank God I was distributing that movie as well. And I managed to substitute Drew Barrymore for Gwyneth so that Gwyneth could play Emma. And Woody Allen did us a real favor by doing that because we were scheduled to shoot Emma and I wanted Gwyneth for the role. At the end of the meeting, we had a glass of champagne. As I was walking out the door, I said to her, "I'd love you to give me a massage." And she went, "Yeah." And, that was it. I didn't put my hand on her. I didn't touch her. I definitely made a pass,
pause.
I guess,
I guess. Dude, I mean, it's Harvey Weinstein. He's got all that power. And there's probably a lot of actresses who said yes, I'm guessing. But also, fucking Hollywood, dude.
A lot of actors are given the advice to flirt with everyone, male or female, no matter who you are, male or female, because that is part of booking the gig. You make yourself you're likable.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, dude, this happens, but for the sake of the audience, like it happens at every level of Hollywood.
Yes.
We're talking below the line. I hate that term, but below the line with the work that happens at every fucking level. It happens in a lot of corporate America. Happens a lot probably behind the scenes in a lot of YouTube places. It's just humans being humans. But just for him to say, yeah, I guess it was kind of a
he's not being completely honest. It's like,
no,
look, I use my power to get pussy.
But is it against the law to go, hey, I'd really like to give you a massage or give me a massage?
Not against the law.
Not against the law.
Down
on everybody.
There was a super chat. A random commentator. He says for $10 to clarify, this is not Harvey Weinstein's first episode, just first with video. She's been actually doing a great job. Names have been named in previous episodes. Watch them; they're mind blowing.
So it's not her interviewing him; it's her just talking about it. Then okay, good to know. Good to know, and that's good clarification. We appreciate.
Did
that.
I just freeze? Did I freeze?
Yeah.
All right.
You look like you're sleeping. Sitting up.
Dang it. I just ordered the new camera too. Thanks to Xray Girl. This sucks. All right.
She did have Brad call me, and Brad, very manly, very cool, just said, "Don't do that again." And that was that. We made 11 movies together, classic films, Shakespeare in Love, Talented Mr. Ripley, Sliding Doors, just so many great movies and such a great partnership. And now I heard, that she thought the relationship was abusive. Anybody who was there, who witnessed that relationship, it just turned into total friends. There's pictures of her hugging me when I was sick, when I was sick in the hospital and didn't think I was going to make it in 1999. Gwyneth at the Golden Globes said, "Bomber, we miss you." She got up and made a speech about me. Nobody asked her to do that. In her Academy speech, she thanks me. She's the daughter of a wealthy TV producer, a great man, and Blythe Danner, a great actress, with Steven Spielberg as her godfather. She doesn't have to do. She could have just said, "Harvey asked me for a massage."
Baby.
For him again.
And that's one of the things that I was very compelled in speaking with you. And obviously, you and I have spoken many times off record. You're very honest. Every time I ask you a question about any actress, you tell me exactly what happened. And it's interesting because what you're speaking about was what I always found to be problematic about the Me Too movement from the beginning is we're conflating, he made a pass at me and I didn't like it, right? Or, I turned him down, or maybe I had a bad date with someone with rape. And this is very problematic. And sure, she can say that. I didn't like that he made a pass at me, but to jump on a train when people are saying I've been raped, I think it's irresponsible for women to do that. I really do think it's irresponsible for people to be conflating being hit on and not liking it, which you've admitted to, and I've been raped.
No question about it.
No
It's all
question.
conflated, and it's all led to the idea that I am going to be the one they prosecute. I am going to be the one they persecute. Look, when the case was overturned, they could have dropped it, but they didn't. They just went after me one more time.
So hit pause real quick.
Somebody to it.
Just to be clear, to state the obvious, because that's what we do here on YouTube. That's what happened a lot more often than, which hurts the actual, as you guys know, I'm stating the obvious again. What hurts the actual accusation of actual rape is all the false accusations that go completely unpunished. It's only been recently where women have been lightly punished. If women want to achieve full equality, well, let's take a look at the equality of prison sentences between men and women. You want to talk about a gap? It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So false accusation, if proven beyond the shadow of a doubt, should be treated exactly like the actual act. It should be treated like that because you need to have consequences for that. It's uncountable how many lives have been ruined with false accusations or conflating stuff that, maybe a woman regretted because she got caught by her husband or just regretted it the next morning. You know what? That's on you. I was drunk. Well, that's on you. Who fucking drank the alcohol? It's not like you were, roofied. Different. You knowingly drinking alcohol and being irresponsible. That's, you know what? I don't blame all my problems when I was fucking high. You know whose problems those were? Mine. That was my fault. My fucking fault when I got high and did stupid shit. That can't be fucking undersold. And nobody's done anything about it, really.
One thing I do want to say is I've asked to have lie detector tests brought into the prison. And I already took a lie detector test on Jessica Mann. And I scored in the highest level, that one can do for honesty about not sexually assaulting her or raping her, and I want to do lie detector tests on the others. I know they're not admissible, but I want the world to know that I did that. And I hope the women would just take me up on the challenge and say, okay, we'll do it too. But I doubt they will, but I will.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the things that stunned me is that they didn't report a lot of this stuff in the press. And when I looked at this case and I said, if you're a journalist and you're just interested in anything, why would you leave out these big details? He passed a lie detector test. The things that the court was not allowing to be shown as proof of your innocence in the courtrooms were something that also stunned me, particularly involving the LA case, which I fully expect to similarly be overturned. It definitely looked like the Me Too movement got so big that they needed to say, sort of hang somebody. Somebody's got to die so that we can move on and think that we've achieved social justice. And I think that somebody was definitely you.
100%. They wanted me, and they wanted me in jail forever.
Yeah, and it's quite stunning because I think now, and maybe you recognize this, the Me Too movement is on its way out, if it's not officially gone now, and people are willing to sort of look and examine the facts of this case. And I'm wondering if a lot of these celebrities, and I'll just give you an example here. Seth Rogen came out when things were happening with you, and he said, I believe all women coming forward about Harvey Weinstein's sexual harassment. It took bravery to do so. Such a blanket statement to just say, I believe all women. That was kind of what was being said in 2017 and 2018. Like, women have never told a lie.
They never lie.
I can, Seth, and I made a movie together called Zach and Miri Make a Porno. It was a Kevin Smith film, and it didn't do well. And I think, sometimes you blame the producer or the distributor, and in this case, they blame me. And it was a good movie, and I wish I could have marketed it better, but I couldn't find the handle on it. And so I think there was always animosity between Seth and myself. So given the opportunity, he took a shot at me, and so be it. But I hear he's doing great work on this. I read about that he's doing amazing work on this TV series he has called The Studio, and he's an extremely talented individual. But I was a sitting duck.
Yeah, and look, a lot of these people, I think it was step on his head while he's drowning, and it will help you. And I'm sure their PR agents were saying, you don't want to get caught up in this, make the right statement, or you're going to get burned by this. But like I said, some people took it, I think, a bit further. You and I had discussed, and I don't know if we want to talk about this, but Brad Pitt kind of got involved in a Me Too project after this, kind of got involved in a Me Too movie, so to speak, helping to produce one. And you and him had a very close relationship.
Well, I wouldn't say it was close, but it certainly was friendly. And I guess his company produced She Said, the New York Times.
Oh, She Said.
Pause. Yeah, I saw that movie. I'm one of the few people who saw that movie. I predicted it would bomb badly. It's Hollywood and the New York Times congratulating themselves. That's the whole movie. The way they portrayed Harvey Weinstein, they never showed him. From the back, they cast a guy who kind of looked like him. And I don't know, that movie, it's just so like, see how great we are at the New York Times? It's like, I think average moviegoers do not have the stomach for that. Tell me how great you are. F off. We talk about it a lot, but the mainstream media is so out of touch with average, everyday Americans. They become the elite. It used to be that journalism was a blue collar job and was concerned with blue collar.
Now it's a class. Concerns. It's a class. Now it's the elite media class. Yes, for sure.
It reflects all their concerns, not concerns of average everyday people. The mainstream media is so broken. I'm glad for it that people like Candace and Megyn Kelly and Joe Rogan, like others, can rise to the occasion, but fuck, they're so out of touch and completely unaware and don't even understand why they are failing.
Yeah, she said wanted to be like the Woodward Bernstein. I mean, what I recollect is it's a big fluff piece. And what they're going to bring up here is, I guess in this story from the New York Times, they left out a lot of shit, which shouldn't like surprise anybody. Before, social media, and a lot of you guys know this, is places like the New York Times and everybody got their news from basically two sources. It was AP and Reuters. They were fed the official version of events. Now they did like little local reporting and stuff independently, but for the big stuff, AP and Reuters would supply them with all their official version of events.
When it came out, obviously I was concerned, but it bombed so badly. There was no interest in it. It grossed $2.5 million. It was a $30 million movie, something like that, or maybe that between advertising and the cost of the film. And the movie grossed $2.5 million its opening weekend, which is a disaster. I think it went on to gross $4 or $5 million. So maybe it showed there's no interest in me, but there certainly was no interest in the case. And the New York Times, those writers, I have read something that is so explosive and such a bombshell that a young writer named Clark Patterson, conservative, with the guts to write an article about what happened to me at the New York Times, a detailed point-by-point article showing that there was no reporting, that they were taking dictation. When they said, she said, they meant it. She said, we wrote it down, we never checked it. Rose McGowan said, I donated money to an organization. They never checked, that she did that. They never checked, these different things and followed up and did the research before they wrote the article. Ashley Judd's claims are, ridiculous. I stood in a hotel room. I never touched her, came on to her, nothing ever. I fought for her. They said I banned her on a movie. I fought for her on Good Will Hunting, and I lost that battle. I thought she would have been fabulous in that movie, and I think she would have gotten an Oscar nomination. But, people can forget all it is research. There's an article in the Washington Post, if you Google Ashley Judd and Harvey Weinstein, and said that Ashley Judd gushed all over me at the English Patient Oscar party. There's a picture of me holding her hand. And when she went on TV, she said, see, he's pulling me. He's pulling me. I was just holding her hand, pushing her into the party, bringing her in. But Diane Sawyer and those people at that time, you believed it because everybody believed those people, at that moment. The New York Times believed no research whatsoever. I hope this article blows the whole place up, and that the Pulitzer Prize people reconsider.
Do you really honestly think if he was a grapist, a horrible, violent grapist, that he would have had the long career he had? You could say he was a scumbag. You could say casting couch types of events occurred. Some might take this the wrong way, but I feel like the women that were involved got what they wanted, which
in
was
the transaction.
In the transaction, they were cast in movies and they went on to win Oscars, and he had that kind of power.
I can believe that powerful Hollywood producers get away with a lot of stuff that would be considered a crime and a felon that would get the rest of us in jail for the rest of our lives. And most of us wouldn't do it because we have this thing called morality, and morality just doesn't exist there. It's become such a sick town and a sick environment. They dealt with it by making it a sicker environment and more authoritative. It was really fucking bizarre place, Hollywood. But in this case, I mean, I need to see some evidence, but I'm willing to listen. I'm definitely willing to listen. I don't think he's getting out. I just don't, because I don't think he flips the Los Angeles case at all. And maybe he's innocent. I don't fucking know. He's the fall guy, and everybody's focused on Harvey, and nobody focuses on everything else. Let's not forget where Me Too stopped. Me Too stopped at men and children. It was only Me Too for women because it was convenient for the power grab in Hollywood. But when men started talking about it, it kind of got shut down. And then, when people go, well, if there's men and women, what about their kids? Not a fucking peep. Just find that strange.
Harvey, I think it's perhaps more sinister than you even think, because we're similarly following a case with Blake Lively, and it is a case of she said. The New York Times, I think, even worse than that, they wanted to go after this guy. They had friends at the New York Times. The exact same woman who won a Pulitzer, one of the 3 people who won a Pulitzer for taking you down, Megan Twohey, was the one who wrote this piece about Justin Baldoni. And when we got the full details, gratefully, Brian Friedman, and this would have been my legal strategy had I been your lawyer.
I did not know that. Hang on, pause. So one of the co-authors of the article against Harvey Weinstein went after Justin Baldoni and was dictated to do so by Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. That's interesting. I wonder if she'll win a Pulitzer for that one.
But I think personally there should be laws. A journalist should have to go to prison. I mean, if you're putting people in prison on the basis of what you write, it just would follow to me that somebody would have to suffer the consequence of lying. These are lies by omission and painting people as, sexual harassers or worse than that, rapists, because you're maybe doing a solid for your friend, which is what it's looking like the New York Times was doing for Blake Lively and Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps bigger people behind them. Have you considered the angle, Harvey, that these are big bosses, WME bosses, are the people who want to buy a piece of your company? Have you made somebody angry? I think that there might have been something more behind the takedown of you, because I can't comprehend it. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I don't know. I think, with the New York Times, I think the relationship was always rocky, because I wanted, the New York Times to cover the things that I wanted, and I wanted the New York Times not to cover some of the things too. So it was a back and forth relationship. And I, on one level, I had a great relationship, with the owner, but the owner of the paper, has a firewall between him and the editorial. There were editorial back and forth. I guess they didn't like me and they wanted me, and I was a good target for them.
How do you think she then won a Pulitzer? That's what's stunning to me. It kind of makes the entire system fraudulent, because to win a Pulitzer, it has to be such detailed. You looked at every angle, you've explored every case. I mean, I barely looked at this case before I realized something was very wrong. And I thought you were guilty, by the way. When you and I first got on the phone, I just said, I don't even remember what he was in prison for, but there were so many articles that surely somebody did the due diligence and noticed that he was guilty or confirmed that. And it was, an hour reading into these transcripts. And I went, what's going on here?
Well, this young man, Clark Patterson, has a detailed article coming out, which will detail piece by piece, every name, every story, everything that they did and everything they didn't do as reporters. And it is a stunning piece. And I hear it's going to be published soon. I don't know where, but I just heard through the grapevine. But and I read a preliminary article, and I'm excited, to have that out. I hope the New York Times restates its case so I can sue them for defamation.
Absolutely. And a question for you, Harvey, somebody who's on the red carpet all the time, flying premieres, flying private, commanding so much respect in the industry. What is a day in your life like now?
And this is where it ends. Boom.
Oh, God, look at that thumbnail.
So a day in the life of Harvey Weinstein is he gets up early in the morning, drops a deuce, goes and gets some slop and some fucking, in the morning you probably get some biscuits and gravy. You might get some powdered eggs, and then you go back and then you watch TV. I doubt he's hitting the yard, I doubt he's lifting weights or playing racquetball, or it depends on like where you are, how max it is. I've never been to Rikers, never want to go to Rikers. But then he goes and gets lunch. Then he goes back and watches some TV, probably reads a book, probably plays some pinochle, maybe throws some bones with the brothers, and then he has dinner and has Salisbury steak. Yep. And then he goes back to his cell and watches some TV, read a book, play some pinochle, throw some bones with the brothers, And intermixed in that is a little bit of maybe the occasional fucking prison race riot, somebody trying to stab you, some knucklehead trying to start a fight, That's the day in the life of Harvey Weinstein. Lots of FOMO, though. You get FOMO in prison. Fear of missing out. Because you're literally missing out on everything. I think, he should be allowed to talk and people should be allowed to interview him. We should hear his side of the story. It's the way things go. I am convinced that Harvey did horrible things and he probably didn't do some of the horrible things he's accused of, because Hollywood's filled with a bunch of backstabbing opportunists who will fucking dance on somebody's grave before they're fucking dead. That's what I believe.
Nerdrotic.com. Please subscribe.
That screwy belly hooey Hollywood, where any office boy